Update. I overheard my fiancée say to her best friend that the only people she really cares about are her siblings and parents, and that everyone else is background. I confronted her about it and she says I have no reason to be upset. Original post. Backstory. I, 28 male, met my fiancée Rosa, 27 female, a few years ago in college. We hit it off immediately and started dating in our senior year. We've been together for a little over 5 years now. I proposed to her a few months ago, she accepted, and we're getting married this summer. She's wonderful, the smartest, funniest, and prettiest woman in the room wherever she goes. By far, she's the most important person in my life. Rosa is Middle Eastern and told me from the beginning that she's very family-oriented. Her best friend Sophia is of the same ethnic origin, and the pair have been best friends since they were kids. One night, Rosa was at my house when Sophia called saying she was upset about something in her family. I told my fiancé that she should invite her friend over so they could talk. I was pretty tired anyway. Sophia came over. I greeted her, then went upstairs to go to bed. About half an hour later, I came downstairs to get water when I heard my fiancé saying something to Sophia along the lines of, "Yeah, I mean honestly, the only people I really care about are my parents and brothers. I couldn't live without them. Everyone else is background." It hurt. A lot. Especially the way she said it. Not even in a malicious way, just in a "this is how it is" way, as though there's no debate because truly no one else matters. Her best friend, who would also be categorized as background by that logic, agreed, and said she also viewed her immediate family as her top priority. But her best friend isn't in a long-term relationship where she's engaged to be married. I went back upstairs and couldn't sleep. When Rosa came back, I told her I overheard it and that it hurt me. She responded with, "I'm not gonna lie to you. My parents and brothers come first. I promise you, once we are married and build a life together, then you and our kids will come first. But those feelings aren't something we can force." I didn't say anything to her after that, but I took my pillow and went to sleep in another room. She didn't follow me or make any effort to show that she cared, even though I do that for her whenever she's upset. When I brought it up the next day, she repeated what she said before. I know I can't force her to feel anything, and I wouldn't want to have to force her to love me more than anyone else. But if you asked me who my number one person is, I would say her in a heartbeat. Am I unreasonable for wanting my future wife to love me as much as I love her? Now for the top comments before reading the update. Responded with, "I'm not gonna lie to you. My parents and brothers come first. I promise you, once we are married and build a life together, then you and our kids will come first. But those feelings aren't something we can force. In my marriage, we dated, we got married. Parents were still number one. Then the children came, and I just moved further down the ladder. But her family always came first, or a close second to the kids. In my experience, this is a red flag when brothers, sisters, or parents are already that high up. It doesn't change, even if she tells you it will. Wait until after kids. You'll feel like the fifth wheel. Did your ex listen to her parents over you about your kids? That's one thing I'd be really concerned about if someone put their parents above their partner. I'm not seeing this in other comments, so I'll say it. This is a recipe for horrible in-laws. If there's an argument, and there will be, her family will win. She'll say, "But mom and dad make sense," or something like that. Also, when she says you and future kids will move up the ladder, she means the kids. They will be her new priority. She might have labeled you as not as important since you were just dating, so it could change now. But if you don't see it change before marriage, I'd suggest bailing or being okay with being secondary. This is where my mind went to. If the in-laws are ever awful, she'll excuse their behavior endlessly. If OP wants to celebrate a holiday with his family, well, OP's fiancé's parents want to celebrate it with her and the kids when they come, so too bad for OP. Go to premarital counseling. This sounds like a big cultural difference that needs to be worked through. A good premarital counselor will help you get to the bottom of different values regarding things like how you were raised, whether you want kids and how you'd parent them, financial attitudes and goals. Basically, all the stuff you don't want coming up for the first time after you're married. My husband and I went through a secular counselor. Our relationship is rock solid, but we still learned a ton and found it very helpful. Good luck. Now for the update. Rosa and I talked the next day over dinner. The very brief summary of the conversation is something like this. Me, you are without a doubt my number one, but I'm not yours. That's not something I can get over. Rosa, I promise once we marry, get a home together, have children, all of that, truly build a life together, you and our children will be my number one. Me, what about your family? Rosa, they're number one too. You would be equal. Here's the thing. Rosa isn't wrong at all. Love isn't a competition, and family is very important. That being said, we simply have two different viewpoints in life. I want to have my own family, love them above everything else, and know that my wife and I are loving partners who don't have anyone else who comes even remotely close to that love. That's what I want. Maybe it's the stereotypical two independent American viewpoint. And if it is, then I'm okay with that. It's just as valid as her conservative, traditional Middle Eastern perspective. I realized during that conversation that I don't want to spend my entire life fighting for my wife's love. There's only one of me. But on the other side, there's her mom, her dad, two brothers, a cousin she considers a sister, and a bevy of extended family. What happens when the one person she loves disagrees with 10+ people she loves just as much? I lose. Every time. I don't have much family in the area, and our future children would be accepted and enveloped within Rosa's family. Again, it's one person versus 10+ people. At the end of the day, Rosa, her family, and our future children will be ethnic Jordanians, while I'm still just the white guy who married Rosa. She's already told me that her aunts and uncles aren't big fans of me because I'm not Arab, and I don't think that will magically change once we get married. I plan on breaking it off with Rosa tomorrow over lunch. I'm nervous just thinking about it and remembered this post, so I thought I'd give y'all an update. I promise once we marry, get a home together, have children, all of that, truly build a life together, you and our children will be my number one. Your place in her life is conditional. You have to tick the ring, house and kids boxes before you personally are important to her. In other words, you are a means to an end. Another guy who can provide the above is just as likely a candidate for the husband title. Where is the affection and passion for you? What about all the memories you've built over the last 5 years? That hasn't won her affection? Life doesn't always go according to plan. What if you're infertile? What if you get laid off and struggle financially for a while? Are you definitely not going to be a priority for her then? She kept saying, when we've built a life together, but they'd been in a relationship for 5 years. What had that time been if not a life together? For me, I spent those years in my relationship seeing what our life would look like and whether it was one that would make me happy. I wouldn't have married my husband if that time hadn't proven to me that our life would be fulfilling, loving, and cherished. What proof does OP have that those feelings would ever come after marriage if 5 years and an engagement weren't enough? Yes, 5 years and an engagement, that's not enough. Also, the fact that she didn't even try to help him sort through his hurt feelings or explain things in a better way so he wouldn't feel like he'd always be low on the priority list, that's just cold. I was in a 6-year relationship with a Middle Eastern guy. Trust me, you will never gain status. Literally some random cousin they haven't seen in 20 years will take precedence over you, as will a nasty cousin who treats them badly. Everyone in their family will outrank you, always. See, you just need one with a backbone. When my now husband's mom went after me for not being Arab, how do we tell people back home you married a Chinese? He broke it off with his family. A husband, no matter what cultural background, will not allow his family to be openly disrespectful to you, regardless of your background. Anyone who says otherwise is just being a coward, and that goes for wives and everyone in between too. Next story. I love my boyfriend. I'm breaking up with him so he can focus on his baby. Original post. We dated before this for 1.5 years, but broke up in 2020 during COVID. We both agreed that we loved each other. We really did. But it was a stressful time. We lived too far apart, couldn't visit because of work and quarantining, etc. The whole story. We decided to end things on good terms instead of dragging it out and torturing ourselves. We agreed to stay friends and keep in touch, which I eventually started to regret because it hurt every time I talked to him, but I still loved him too much to cut off all contact. Eventually, he was the only one initiating conversations, and then that fizzled out too. He was always my favorite ex. I don't know if people usually have favorite exes, but he was mine. The one that got away, I guess. In late 2024, we reconnected. He saw on social media that we were living in the same city and asked to meet up. We started dating again, and it felt exactly like it did before. Roughly 3 months after we got back together, his ex told him she was pregnant, in her second trimester. He told me he didn't think the baby was his because the timeline wasn't adding up, and she kept avoiding the topic of a paternity test. He didn't want to upset her in case the baby was his, and he didn't want to get the courts involved because that would really anger her. He wanted to be involved in the baby's life without any trouble. So his plan was to wait until the baby was born, see if it looked like him, and then decide whether to talk to a lawyer about a court-ordered paternity test. The baby was born, a girl, and she did look like him, so he decided not to ask for a DNA test. The next day, his ex confessed that he was not the biological father. She lied because the biological father was abusive, and she wanted to protect herself and the baby. She lied to everyone because my boyfriend was her last ex, so it was the most believable story. My boyfriend has a big heart. He was involved during the last trimester, went to every doctor's appointment after he found out, and was already attached to the baby. He decided to go along with the lie, sign the birth certificate, and co-parent her. Personally, I thought it was a very strange situation. I was mostly worried that his ex would eventually decide she didn't want to co-parent anymore and try to take his rights away. He didn't think that would happen and said, based on his own research, not advice from a lawyer, that after a certain time period, 30 or 60 days, a paternity test wouldn't matter, and he would legally be the baby's father. That deadline passed. The baby is now 7 months old, and everything seems okay on that front. I supported his decision. Blood and DNA don't mean much to me. I don't share the same father as my siblings, and all my nieces and nephews are adopted or stepkids. There's no difference to me. I love kids, and I'd love a stepdaughter wholeheartedly. My dad was abusive, so I understood why she lied. We spent time together with his ex fairly often while she was pregnant, but much less after the baby was born. I'm calling her his ex because it's easier to type, though the mother of his child would be more accurate. We only ever spent time together when my boyfriend was present. She's nice enough, but our personalities don't mesh. She makes a lot of inappropriate jokes that make me uncomfortable, and I know she doesn't like me either. We stayed civil for his sake, but we were never friends. She lives with her sister who, according to what I've been told, is unhappy about the baby and doesn't help at all. As a result, my boyfriend goes over there every day to take care of the baby, which makes sense since he claimed her. I've asked if I could go with him sometimes to help and spend time together, but the sister doesn't want people she doesn't know in her house. I respect that, but it still sucks because our apartment complex doesn't allow children, so caregiving always has to happen at her place. Our living situation is a bit unusual. We live in the same apartment complex but in different units. We each have keys to both apartments and use them interchangeably. I asked him if he wanted to move somewhere that allows children when his lease was up, but he said no. He said that since the apartments are across the street from my work, I should stay there, and he didn't want to live apart from me. Honestly, I think that reasoning is flawed. I don't mind commuting, and I told him that. I'm not sure whether he was trying to make things easier on me, trying to prove that nothing would change between us, or if his ex wanted the baby primarily with her. I do get to see the baby sometimes. When the weather was warmer, we took walks together. But now that it's cold, the baby needs to stay inside, so he's always at her house. They split caregiving 50-50 as best they can, but because of his work schedule, I mostly only see him when he's asleep. The baby barely sleeps and only does so while being held, so his routine is wake up, work, shower, go to her house, take care of the baby, come home, pass out, repeat. Occasionally we eat breakfast or dinner together, but usually we don't. He never sleeps or showers at her house. Sometimes he accidentally falls asleep there, but he makes a point not to stay overnight because he doesn't want to give her the wrong impression. I don't know if she wanted him to move in. He says she didn't. But maybe this boundary is for my sake, so I don't think he's cheating. We used to text and FaceTime while he was there, but his ex doesn't want the baby around screens. which is understandable. Now we can only talk when the baby is sleeping, and since she only sleeps in short bursts, we barely talk at all. I love this baby. I care about her. I admire that he's stepping up, but this is really hard for me. I thought it would get easier as she got older, but people have told me it only gets harder. She'll start walking, his ex will be even more exhausted, and he'll have to do even more. I don't see how that's possible when he's already spending almost all of his free time there. I've tried to make it work. I don't want to make him choose between me and the baby. I'd never do that to him. So I've really tried. I've tried to help with the baby, but the sister doesn't want strangers in her house. I've tried to carve out quality time for us, but it just doesn't happen. Last month, I asked him to schedule one day every week that would be just for the two of us to spend time together. That worked for 4 weeks, but most of those days were spent catching up on sleep because he was exhausted. His ex got upset because she didn't have a day to shirk her responsibilities. She called him, really upset and crying, and called us selfish. I could hear her on the phone, so he stopped doing it. Maybe it was selfish. I apologized to her and she said everything was okay between us. I don't know what else I can do. I feel like we're just roommates who kiss and share a bed. I love this man. I want to marry him. I want to have kids with him. I wanted that in 2020 before COVID broke us up. I have never loved any of my past boyfriends the way I love him. But kids are more important, right? I feel like kids are more important. When I was a kid, I was not put first, and those years were awful. I know the baby is so little that she isn't really aware of anything right now, but I don't see how this situation is going to change when she's a toddler. So I'm going to bow out gracefully. It's going to hurt, and I've cried every day since I made this decision, but I think it's something that needs to happen. For the record, I 100% believe him when he says he loves me. He says he cares about his ex as a friend, not romantically. I've asked, and he says that even if he weren't dating me, they wouldn't have gotten back together just because she was pregnant. I believe he's being faithful. I don't think he would ever cheat. I told my boyfriend this morning that he needed to come home early tonight so we could talk. I was going to break up with him tonight. He didn't come home. His ex told him he needed to leave work early because the baby was sick. He went over and called me to say the baby doesn't seem sick to him, but his ex is exhausted. He thinks she imagined the symptoms because she's so tired, so he's going to stay there for a while so she can take a nap. I feel like this just proves my point. The baby needs him, his ex needs him, and I love him, but I'll survive without him. I'm trying to stay up until he gets home, but I don't know if he's coming home tonight or if he'll be awake enough to talk when he does. I think he knows I'm going to break up with him. He keeps texting and saying we can have our talk over the phone. Before today, he'd been adhering to the no screens around the baby rule. But this is something that needs to be done in person, when there isn't a possibly sick baby needing his attention. This sucks. Now for the top comments before reading the update. Wow, that guy has gotten himself into a complete mess with his ex and a baby that isn't even his. I honestly don't see how your situation could possibly work within all of that. He's clearly not able to give you the attention you deserve. All that day-to-day scheduling sounds insane, with so many constraints. An apartment that doesn't allow babies, no screens, an ex who's constantly calling. I don't even know how you've managed to put up with it for so long. You're missing a relationship from the past, from before COVID, but that relationship, and your boyfriend, will never rise from the ashes. You're no longer in the same place in life at all. I'm sorry, but if I were you, I'd wipe the slate clean and stop getting more involved in this twisted dynamic between him, the baby, and the mother. It's already complicated enough between them. Spare yourself the pain. It all sounds so insane when I read it typed out. It feels insane to live it, but reading it makes it so much clearer. I know that if we hadn't had a prior relationship, I would not have stayed with him when she told him she was pregnant, especially when he himself admitted the timeline wasn't working but was still entertaining it. But I already loved him, and I wanted to support him. I thought we could stick it out this time, but obviously it's not meant to be. The thing is, the guy from the past no longer exists. It will never be like it used to be. That is no longer possible. This is who he is now, a baby daddy in an insane situation. This is the reality. You can't stay while hoping it will go back to how it was. This situation will only strip you of yourself and destroy your mental and emotional well-being. Two things can be true at once. You can love him and also know that being with him will hurt you. It's best to grieve what it could have been and accept that it's no longer an option for the two of you. You're completely right. What we had was nice, but now it's time for us to part ways. Now for the update. Okay, wow, this is a lot of comments. I think when I signed off, there were maybe 5. I'll try to read all of them tonight, but I don't know if I'll be able to. He came home this morning and we had a long talk. He listened and understood where I was coming from. He was sad and hurt. We both are. He cried, and I've only seen him cry once before when he broke his leg. I feel awful, but this has to be done. He told me he understands, but he seems to think that if he can fix the situation, we can stay together. He said he's going to find a place that allows babies where we can move so he can start keeping the baby at his own place. He also said he's going to look for a babysitter to take care of her sometimes, so he and the mother can get breaks. I told him he could do that if he wanted to, but that he should do it because he wants to, not to fix our relationship. I think it's in everyone's best interest if we end things now. He said he's going to do it anyway to prove he cares about me and is dedicated to the relationship. That's his choice, but I don't have to stick around to see it. He called out of work and wanted to spend the day at my apartment so we could try to work things out, but I asked him to leave so I could have space. So we spent the days sitting in our own separate apartments. All day he kept emailing me links to houses for rent and one for a nanny agency website. I ignored them. After a while, I told him he should go be with his baby because I wasn't going to come over. But he said he was going to stay home and keep himself available in case I decided I wanted to talk. Personally, that seems like a very strange decision when the mother was worried the baby might be sick yesterday, but it's not my baby and not my choice. I'm not sure if he was ignoring the mother's calls. She and I hardly talk, but around the time he usually gets off work, she called to ask if he was with me or working late. I didn't want to be the one to tell her we broke up, so I just said he wasn't with me and I didn't know what he was doing. Soon after that, he left. I went over to his apartment and gathered all of my belongings that I could find and dropped off everything of his that I had. I left his key. I'll ask for my key back another day. Part of me feels like if he does change those things, moves somewhere he can bring the baby and finds childcare so he can occasionally get a few hours break, then maybe we could make it work. But those are only maybes. If he moves, there's no guarantee the mother will let him bring the baby over. There's also no guarantee she'll trust a babysitter or nanny. And what if he tries to do these things and it upsets her? I don't want to ruin whatever good relationship they have right now if we're just going to break up anyway. The baby needs to come first. We don't need to torture ourselves.